Hi, I've got a little bit more waffling about the fire sermon, but I am not feeling very well. So, as usual, it probably won't make any sense. So, I think I mentioned the heirs of city directors and potentially that's heirs of Newt. I'm sure there's other correspondences too. That's the only one I can think of at the minute. So, then we've got by the waters of Le Mans, I sat down and wept, which is a reference to Psalm 137. But there's also Lake Le Mans, known as Lake Geneva in Switzerland, where he stayed when he had a nervous condition. It's also where Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein. Also, where a tsunami destroyed the fort Torredonum, part of the Kingdom of Burgundy, a long time ago. I thought about wept and tears as like adding fluid and being fertility. But also the waters of Le Mans could be a homophone for William Lemon talking about Truro and the river there in the Old Methodist Church. I also found a reference, this is after the poem, that there were Soviet secret agents in Lake Geneva sending lots of Morse code. But at my back I always hear changes to Cold Blast. I hear, and later from time to time I hear, so there's a dual reference later on. So that's from Andrew Marvell's To His Coy Mistress. But I also thought of a reference to Ozymandias in there. He's got sneer of cold command, so I think it's that the Cold Blast and the sands of time sort of makes sense. So in that case, then the rattle of bones are those of a pharaoh or pharaoh's mummy. And I thought about the chuckle, laugh, I think it's rire in France, which is rear or back homophone. So this could be a dual reference to Bacchus. Rattle of Bones is the name of a short story written by Robert E. Howard, but it wasn't published in 1929, which is after The Wasteland was published. But Robert E. Howard's work is very Poe-like, so it's interesting, just as a side note. The dance macabre or memento mori is evoked by these bones, as well as the concept of resurrection, as in rising from the grave. Could also refer to Joseph's bones, which were buried in the Nile in a likely allegorical tale with golden statues of dogs around the submerged coffin. Serah, the daughter of Asher, was alive centuries later. That was handy. And she'd watched it from the bank and so was able to point out the location, and the coffin rose to the surface, I think on Moses' command. So this could be related to carrying the bones/coffin of Joseph, as in Exodus 13. Which also gives us the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud and by night in a pillar of fire, which gives us another association between the fire sermon and God. So this rat has come up several times, associated before. I've said the Pied Piper, Baudelaire's child's toy poem. Fishing, perhaps through Pêche original sin. There's a homophone between pêche, fish, and sin, where you catch a fish on a hook, which is vav, but also means peg for the tabernacle. And my hilarious joke, I don't think he's referring to pegging. I told you it wasn't making much sense. Thanks for listening.